I'm a 45-year-old woman living with my husband 46, our twin girls, and two teenage boys. Additionally, my 65-year-old mother-in-law has been living with us since 2015, following financial struggles after my father-in-law's passing. While adjusting to this dynamic was initially challenging, we eventually found a way to coexist peacefully. However, 3 months ago, my parents, both 68, faced a crisis when their house burned down. They moved in with us temporarily while sorting out insurance matters. Given the limited space, my boys now share a bedroom, necessitating my parents to occupy my eldest son's room. Unfortunately, tensions arose when my mother-in-law expressed discomfort with my mother's presence. Despite my mother's efforts to maintain peace and respect boundaries, my mother-in-law's resentment persisted. Recently, while I was away for work, a heated argument erupted between them, triggered by accusations of inappropriate behavior towards my father. Upon discovering suggestive texts allegedly from my mother to my father, my mother-in-law felt threatened and called the police. Misunderstandings escalated, leading to the police escorting my parents out of the house. Despite my husband and children being unaware of the situation at the time, the aftermath left us in turmoil. Upon my return and learning of the incident, I felt compelled to address the situation decisively. After thorough consideration, I made the difficult decision to give my mother-in-law a 2-week notice to find alternative living arrangements. This choice was made to ensure the well-being and harmony of our household amidst the escalating tensions. My husband believes I'm overreacting and insists I should forgive his mother's actions, attributing them to loneliness and confusion. However, it's essential to clarify that there are no underlying health issues causing her behavior. Both she and I are in good health. Despite my husband's reluctance to view the text and pictures his mother sent my father, I feel it's crucial for him to understand the gravity of her actions. Initially, I was inclined to immediately ask her to leave, but my husband pleaded for 2 weeks to arrange alternative accommodation for her. Despite my reservations, I relented, respecting his request. Remarkably, my parents, despite being unfairly treated, displayed remarkable grace and advised me to grant this time to my husband. While my husband has expressed sincere apologies to my parents, they hold my mother-in-law solely responsible for the turmoil. It's clear that her reprehensible actions, including making a false police report, are inexcusable. My frustration mounts as my husband appears to prioritize his mother's interests over mine, even condoning her inappropriate behavior. The situation underscores a deeper issue: my husband's failure to assert boundaries with his mother. By siding with her, especially in the face of such egregious conduct, he sends a distressing message. While divorce isn't an immediate consideration, his unwavering support for someone who attempted to sabotage our family's peace is deeply concerning. Considering the gravity of the situation, I'm left contemplating whether my husband's loyalty lies with his mother or with our family's well-being. If he continues to prioritize her comfort over ours, I may need to reevaluate the dynamics of our relationship. It's imperative for him to recognize the line she crossed and stand firm against her manipulative behavior. Ultimately, his actions moving forward will determine the future of our marriage and family harmony. The sheer audacity of the husband's delusion leaves me utterly astounded. The excuse of loneliness is feeble at best. There are countless ways for a capable 65-year-old woman to occupy herself and find fulfillment. From engaging in community activities like bingo or volunteering at the library to joining social clubs like the Garden Club, the options are plentiful. It's mind-boggling that instead of exploring these avenues, she chose to cross boundaries with her daughter-in-law's father. Let's not mince words here. She wasn't confused when she engaged in inappropriate texting or when she called the authorities on them. Her actions reek of entitlement, bolstered by her long tenure in the household. Now, emboldened by her perceived authority, she believes she can dictate terms within the home. Frankly, I struggle to comprehend how she can justify staying after such a flagrant breach of trust. Consider this scenario. If the roles were reversed, how would the husband react if his wife made advances toward her boss, accompanied by explicit photos, and then proceeded to involve law enforcement to eject colleagues from their workplace? It's a parallel that exposes the absurdity of the situation. Reflecting on the broader context, it's evident that the poor op has already endured more than her fair share. Despite valid concerns, Her husband's insistence on visiting his parents underscores a troubling lack of empathy and understanding. The recent arrival of a baby, coupled with her struggles with postpartum depression, should have elicited greater sensitivity from him. Moreover, the presence of an unruly Rottweiler only compounds the stress of the situation, adding another layer of apprehension. Repeated reminders and pleas for reconsideration fell on deaf ears, as her husband remained steadfast in his assurances of a smooth visit. Yet, the reality was starkly different. Limited accommodation options amidst a remote wooded area only exacerbated her apprehension. The saga continued when we arrived in Maine, expecting a seamless stay at the hotel my husband assured me he had booked. However, to our dismay, we discovered that the hotel had closed its doors promptly at 8:00 p.m., as clearly stated on their website. Despite our late arrival at 10:00 p.m., due to catching up with family, we found ourselves stranded. Graciously, his parents offered us their guest room for the night. Imagine my shock when the next morning, their unruly dog waltzed in and relieved itself all over the baby's bassinet. Thankfully, our little one wasn't in it at the time, but my frustration reached boiling point. In a fit of anger, I demanded my husband drive me back to the hotel, barely able to contain my rage. I explicitly instructed him to shut the door behind him, but alas, he failed to comply, further fueling my exasperation. Arriving at the hotel, we were met with the harsh reality that there were no vacancies. My husband's assumption that there would be openings due to the area's rustic nature left us in a predicament. Desperate, I called the only other hotel, located an arduous hour and a half away, only to be met with the same disappointing news: they were fully booked. At this point, all I wanted was to retreat home, but my husband stubbornly refused, insisting we stay with his parents. Reluctantly, I agreed, but not without laying down some ground rules. Given the state of the bassinet, which was now soiled beyond immediate cleaning, I adamantly refused to place our baby in it. My husband's oversight had left us in this mess, so it was only fair that he bear the consequences. I made it abundantly clear that he would be relegated to the floor for the duration of our stay. Furthermore, with the guest bed being a cramped double, I couldn't risk endangering our baby by sharing it. Insisting on maintaining a safe sleeping arrangement, I allocated her a separate side of the bed, resolute in my decision. Despite his protests, I remained steadfast, unwavering in my determination to prioritize our baby's safety and well-being. His suggestion that I sleep with the baby in my arms, reminiscent of our daytime contact naps, was met with a resounding rejection. This wasn't just about inconvenience. It was about holding him accountable for his oversight and ensuring that our baby's comfort and safety remained paramount. I stood my ground, firm in my refusal to entertain the notion of co-sleeping with our baby for an entire night. The brief naps we take together during the day are a world apart from the prolonged sleep we would be attempting at night, especially given my current state of exhaustion. His dismissal of my concerns as idiocy only added insult to injury, as he accused me of punishing him for wanting to spend time with his family, painting me as the antagonist in this scenario. Yet, amidst the tumult of conflicting emotions, one voice resonated with clarity, the sentiment echoed by those who recognized the gravity of the situation. "You are not the idiot," they affirmed, offering a perspective untainted by bias. Their suspicion that his failure to secure accommodations in advance may not have been a mere oversight but a calculated maneuver to coerce us into staying with his parents struck a chord. Their suggestion to leave immediately, prioritizing the safety of our baby over all else, resonated deeply. The risks associated with co-sleeping, particularly in an unfamiliar environment fraught with uncertainty, were too great to ignore. With each passing moment, the urgency to remove ourselves from this precarious situation intensified. As I grappled with the weight of their words, it became apparent that this was not merely about a failed hotel reservation or a compromised sleeping arrangement. It was about autonomy, agency, and the fundamental right to make decisions that prioritize the well-being of our family. In hindsight, the decision to embark on this trip, despite my reservations and ongoing struggles with postpartum depression, was indeed fraught with folly. The recklessness of venturing out of state with an infant who had yet to receive their first round of vaccinations underscored the gravity of the situation. My husband's insistence on proceeding with the trip, despite my objections, revealed a glaring disregard for my well-being and our baby's safety. It was a stark reminder of the need to assert boundaries and advocate for oneself in the face of coercion and manipulation. No longer would I acquiesce to his whims at the expense of my own sanity and the safety of our child. From now on, I would assert my autonomy, unapologetically rejecting any demands that compromise our well-being. Reflecting on my journey with my husband, I couldn't help but reminisce about our college days, where we forged a bond amidst the ebbs and flows of youthful romance. However, the specter of his previous relationship with Millie loomed ominously, casting a shadow over our early interactions with his family. The unspoken expectation that they harbored of a forever connection between him and Millie created an uncomfortable aura that I struggled to reconcile with. Despite assurances of his love and commitment to me, occasional skirmishes arose, fueled by remarks from his friends or lingering sentiments from the past. Yet, in the grand scheme of our relationship, these were fleeting moments of insecurity and uncertainty, overshadowed by the depth of our bond and the life we built together. The innocuous creation of a class group chat by fellow mothers unraveled a thread of discomfort when Millie, prompted by her own struggles to connect, reached out to me for inclusion. In that moment, I grappled with conflicting emotions, bewilderment at her audacity to seek permission, tempered by the realization that our intertwined histories rendered such requests a delicate dance of diplomacy. Navigating this delicate balance, I responded with candor, expressing my reluctance for her inclusion while leaving the door ajar for others to make their own decisions. It was a nuanced response born of consideration for the dynamics at play, the collective history shared by those in the group chat, and the underlying tensions simmering beneath the surface. Her reaction, tinged with hurt and defensiveness, begged the question, was my apprehension solely rooted in her past with my husband? While it undoubtedly cast a shadow over our interaction, the truth was more nuanced, a tapestry woven from threads of shared history, evolving relationships, and the delicate dance of navigating the present while honoring the past. The exchange with Millie unfolded like a delicate dance of diplomacy, fraught with underlying tensions and unspoken grievances. As I expressed my reservations about her inclusion in the class group chat, Millie's response veered into accusations of sensitivity and pettiness, casting me as the antagonist in a narrative I had no desire to inhabit. Amidst her tirade, I stood my ground, asserting my discomfort and refusing to yield to her demands. It was a moment of clarity, where I prioritized my peace of mind over acquiescing to external pressures. My sarcastic retort, born of frustration, underscored the boundaries I was unwilling to compromise, a declaration of independence in the face of unwarranted scrutiny. Millie's insistence on portraying me as the sole arbiter of our shared history was both disconcerting and perplexing. Her accusations of insecurity and elitism only served to deepen the chasm between us, amplifying the discord that had simmered beneath the surface for years. As the drama unfolded, my husband's light-hearted dismissal of the situation belied the underlying tensions at play. While intended as a jest, his nonchalant attitude underscored the complexity of navigating relationships fraught with history and unresolved emotions. Meanwhile, the intervention of a fellow mom in the group chat offered a glimmer of understanding amidst the chaos. Her private inquiry hinted at a nuanced appreciation of the situation, providing a semblance of validation amidst the torrent of accusations and recriminations. In hindsight, the standoff with Millie revealed deeper fissures within our social fabric, exposing the fragility of bonds forged in the crucible of shared history. As accusations flew and tempers flared, it became evident that beneath the veneer of civility lay a simmering cauldron of unresolved tensions and unspoken grievances. The intricacies of blended family dynamics often present challenges, as we strive to balance fairness and individual needs within our household. In navigating these complexities, my husband and I have encountered our fair share of disagreements, particularly concerning the differing roles and privileges afforded to our respective children. One recurring point of contention revolves around the presence of a TV in my son Tom's room. While my husband staunchly opposes the idea, citing concerns about screen time and its potential impact on Anna, I hold a different perspective. For me, allowing Tom this form of entertainment in his personal space is a matter of respecting his autonomy and providing him with a sense of privacy. Similarly, bedtime routines have emerged as another battleground, with my husband enforcing a strict lights-out policy for Anna by 7:30 p.m. on school nights. In contrast, I've opted for a later bedtime for Tom, allowing him to stay up until 9 p.m. to accommodate his teenage schedule. These disparities in rules and privileges have not gone unnoticed by Anna, who understandably questions the fairness of the situation. Her resistance to adhering to the imposed bedtime reflects her frustration at what she perceives as unequal treatment. Despite my husband's attempts to persuade me to align Tom's privileges with Anna's, I remain steadfast in my stance. I refuse to compromise on principles that I believe are essential for fostering a sense of autonomy and respect for individual needs. It's worth noting that I have made concessions in the past to address concerns of fairness. However, in this instance, I'm unwilling to sacrifice Tom's autonomy or disrupt his routine simply to appease Anna's sense of fairness. Navigating the intricacies of blended family dynamics often feels like traversing a minefield, with each new issue presenting its own set of challenges and tensions. While I've made efforts to accommodate both my stepdaughter Anna and my son Tom, there are moments when the delicate balance teeters on the brink of collapse. One such instance arose when my husband insisted on uniform rules for both children, regardless of their individual circumstances. While I've made concessions in the past to address concerns of fairness, I refuse to overhaul our entire household dynamic to appease Anna's sense of equality. Despite my attempts to explain the rationale behind differing rules based on age and circumstances, Anna's tantrums persist, leaving me exasperated and my husband increasingly frustrated. His solution? To demand uniformity at all costs, even if it means imposing unnecessary restrictions on Tom. The latest showdown occurred over something as seemingly trivial as snow pants during a family retreat. When Anna refused to don her snow pants, my husband's frustration boiled over, leading to a heated exchange that left me feeling like a bystander caught in the crossfire. In a moment of defiance, I stood my ground, refusing to subject Tom to unfair treatment simply to placate Anna's demands. It was a decision born of principle, a refusal to compromise Tom's autonomy and integrity for the sake of maintaining peace. As tensions escalated, I made the difficult choice to remove Tom from the situation, seeking solace indoors away from the conflict. Yet, even in the sanctuary of our cabin, the echoes of discord reverberated, casting a pall over what should have been a tranquil evening. When my husband confronted me later, his raised voice echoing with frustration and resentment, I couldn't help but feel a pang of disappointment. How had we devolved into this state of animosity, where compromise and understanding seemed elusive? In that moment, I realized that our family dynamic was in dire need of recalibration, a shift away from rigid adherence to arbitrary rules and towards a more nuanced understanding of each child's unique needs and circumstances. The tension in our household reached a boiling point, with accusations of favoritism and resentment swirling in the air. My husband's insistence that I meet him halfway, coupled with his allegations of showing obvious favoritism towards my son, struck a nerve. Was I truly at fault for allowing my son certain privileges that Anna was denied? In a moment of frustration, I lashed out, asserting that his daughter's behavior was not my responsibility to manage. It wasn't as though Anna's entitlement and tantrums were a recent development. They had only intensified since we transitioned to a 50-50 custody arrangement 6 months ago. Prior to that, when my husband had her only on weekends, such outbursts were infrequent. It was clear to me that my husband's concept of compromise skewed heavily towards his own preferences, leaving little room for my autonomy as a parent. His refusal to address Anna's entitlement issues head-on, instead resorting to irrational demands like forcing Tom to wear snow pants indoors, spoke volumes about his parenting approach. The parallels between my husband's behavior and Anna's tantrums were impossible to ignore. By caving to her demands at every turn, he unwittingly reinforced her entitled behavior, perpetuating a cycle of dysfunction within our family dynamic. As I reflected on the situation, I couldn't help but wonder how long I could continue to shield my son from the fallout of my husband's parenting choices. The prospect of remaining in a relationship where my autonomy as a parent was constantly undermined filled me with a sense of dread. It was a stark reminder that love alone was not enough to sustain a relationship. Mutual respect, understanding, and the ability to navigate conflict were equally essential. And in that moment, I realized that unless my husband was willing to acknowledge and address his daughter's behavior, the cycle of dysfunction would persist, casting a shadow over our family's future.